First, I wanted to thank you for giving me your time today. I know you're a very busy person, but to kind of just start us off, I'd like to kind of ask you, what exactly is esports? Because it's something that I know about. It's just I couldn't really explain it very well to another person.
Yeah, simply, esports is competitive video games. So as you take a look at the history of video games, ever as long as video games have existed, people have competed against each other. This goes back to the very first computer, and the students, what did they do? They turned it into a game. And it's a funny history lesson or a tidbit that they did that, but there's always been a connection between technology and having fun that morphed into the 70s and 80s and the traditional arcade and going in and plugging quarters in and playing Pac-Man and trying to get the top score, or playing a two-person game like Street Fighter and playing against each other in person, to the late 90s when the internet really took off and there was an opportunity for technology to catch up, and we got into things like StarCraft and Dota becoming huge online sensations, to progressing to where we are today, where we have hyper realistic gameplay happening at incredibly fast rates. So now publishers of video games are working to develop titles specifically for competition. Over the last decade, we've seen that as a trend, and the publishers have said this is going to be the way it is. So we are going to continue to see competitive video gaming, which is going to continue to push esports further and further into the mainstream.
So, kind of speaking more about the competitive nature, how competitive is the esports team here at Augustana, and how exactly big is the team? Because I did a little research online, and I kind of got to see the roster and everything. I get to see every athlete, what games that they play. So how competitive would you say come to practice versus when it's competition or tournaments?
Yeah, esports is in its infancy. I think that's important to realize answering this question. We're going back 8 years when the very first collegiate esports team was started at Robert Morris University, to the point where we are now, where there's around 400-ish varsity level teams throughout the United States and Canada. So we've seen a mass growth in a very short amount of time, and we're trying to figure out what that competition is still going to continue to look like. As we take a look at the growth overall with esports, we see youth leagues popping up, we see high schools popping up. I believe that there's now over 30 state high school associations. So we're seeing students being able to start at a younger age, which is going to grow the recruiting pool, which is going to help push what we see on the collegiate side.
Also, kind of speaking of the high school kind of aspect, I know for colleges, you can be recruited to play football, basketball, so on and so forth. Does Augustana look to recruit students from high schools for esports, or not really?
And inevitably, that's why athletics exists, is to recruit students that may not know about Augustana, or it's on their radar, and we're one of those little additional tidbits that someone can grab onto. So we have our first recruiting class that started this current semester. We have 15 new students that came in and joined us. The interesting part between esports and our counterparts in the traditional side of athletics, we offer scholarships. So students can earn a talent-based scholarship up to $3,000 a year for participating in our esports program. So it's an interesting thing to take a look at, where our traditional athletes don't have the ability to earn a talent scholarship for their athletics because of how NCAA Division III works. We're still figuring out what that's all going to look like in esports. We're not associated with the NCAA, so it gives us a little bit more freedom on how we are able to go out and interact and work with students. How do we recruit? We can bring in, for instance, a high school junior or senior, bring them into practice and have them be involved with our team and see what their trial process looks like, so that they can get a feel. But yeah, we actively recruit internationally for students and across all of our titles. Recruiting looks very similar to traditional athletics, but we do get to do a lot of it from our office as well. And I have a lot of nights where I'm sitting watching high school gameplay or talent videos. But I travel. I go visit high schools. We have high schools visit our facility. We go to state competitions. We go to recruiting fairs. So very similar to what we would see on the traditional side.
With kind of the state competitions and the recruiting, is that environment kind of similar to what we'd see at competitions like here? Like, I know, for example, my understanding, like Call of Duty has tournaments all the time, like different cities across the country. It's a big thing. Would you say it's kind of like similar or kind of different?
I will say it depends. And that's part of esports, as we're trying to figure out how does it fit the middle school and high school environment, and how it's going to fit into the college environment. So the great thing about the high school associations, they're running very similar to their traditional counterparts. You see the same thing at the college level. We're members of the National Esports Collegiate Association, as well as the Eastern College Athletic Conference. Both of those entities came out of traditional NCAA conferences. So that's the feel that you have going into competition. Each week we have a head-to-head matchup against another college university from somewhere in North America. And you get to build those relationships. You get to build those rivalries with your opponents, and that's the thing that's exciting about collegiate competition versus a few friends going out and joining a Call of Duty tournament at the local LAN facility.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of clears some things up for me, because like I really was like kind of like unsure about some of the kind of the ways to understand what esports like truly is, and kind of like how it's been growing. Like I've always heard about it, I just wasn't really the most familiar about it. And then like at Augustana, for example, like I know a couple of years ago used to be kind of a club, and like I believe it's this semester is kind of the kickoff semester for it being like varsity sport here.
Yeah, and we had an interesting transition over the last 12 months. I came in and I started in June of 21, and then I worked the 21-22 school year for a planning process. So we had this in-between year where we weren't athletics and we weren't really club sports, but we were getting students actively engaged on our campus that were looking to make that step to being an athlete. And that was the exciting part, to see the talent that we had available on our campus already, and really bringing them in to start creating that foundation for our first recruiting class, which started this semester and officially kick off into year one. So while we're in year one, we were competing within the same conference last year. We still qualified for our national tournaments in Overwatch, League of Legends, and Valorant last year. So we set that foundation early. And I can't forget our ECAC national tournament runner-up in FIFA last year. And creating that tradition helped our recruiting process, bringing in talent and seeing those that have been competing at high school level, seeing what opportunities they were. And then as we delve into this year with our new partnerships with organizations like Gamer and starting to build physical activity into our program, making sure we're taking a look at things like mental health and continuing to grow our program in a direction that's going to benefit our students inside and outside the esports lab.
Kind of speaking about like the mental health aspect that you just touched on, my question for you really is because like me, for example, like when I play video games in my free time, like for me it's an escape. It's just a kind of like after a long week, just if I play games, say with my older brother, it's just kind of something that we both bond over and have fun. Would you say it's kind of a similar environment here, just like kind of like a way for all sorts of students to kind of calm down or just have fun, kind of regardless of their background or what they're dealing with on their own?
I think overall, people utilize video games as a way to recreate. It's a form of leisure for them. Even our athletes, they view video games as a way to have fun, and many of them play multiple titles. They typically use the titles that aren't their varsity titles as a way to just have fun. But when we take into the scope of competition, they are working so hard on these things that what we want to do is we want to protect them from the tilt. People that have played video games understand the feeling, whether they might not know what the word is, and it's that frustration that comes. You miss a shot. In your case, your brother takes you out, and then all of a sudden you get the rage, and you want to do the controller throw. Our athletes feel those things too, and what we do is we work on things where we talk about positive self-talk, resilience, grit, so that we're working in an environment where we're going to continue to build. As soon as that tilt comes, we've shut ourselves off from improvement. Now, a couple other aspects of mental health and gaming in general and the esports world, we do see high number of mental health concerns when we take a look at the esports world, and there's a number of reasons for those things, but really a lot of this goes into a football player is a physical athlete, an esport athlete is a cognitive athlete. While we do physical training for them, it's not physical training to make them stronger, faster, bigger. It's physical training because physical training is good for their brain health. So we're really focused on what's happening between the ears of these athletes. So we think about things like, have you been sleeping? Have you gone outside, touched some grass? Have you been able to escape from the thought process or the negative thought processes that come when you have a bad practice? So we focus on those things, even the things like nutrition. How does that play a role? And those are the things that end up making the it's not just what's happening in our lab, but how do those things then benefit when they're out in the classroom? How does it benefit once they leave the college and they go out into the real world? And the goal is to hopefully we're developing opportunities and routines that are going to then have some bearing on what they're going to do for the rest of their life.
I understand, and like kind of just like my whole thought process on it, kind of with kind of gaming in general. Like I definitely try to, because I can definitely say my fair share of playing games that I've gotten frustrated at times. I think it happens to everyone, just like how you were saying with like you miss a shot or just having a bad practice, having a bad game, and then like I would imagine, because like I don't want to throw a controller, and I don't mean any shame towards those that do like release that anger. I just don't want to do it, because then for me personally, I would get almost a little bit more angry, because it's like I just messed up some of my equipment and I have to take the time to go get a new controller.
It snowballs.
Yeah, it's like I can't think of the name of it, but it's like when one thing goes bad, a lot of other things go bad, like a trail of bad things, and like I don't want to let the anger of a video game with like me potentially throwing a controller make things worse, especially if it's something that like a console or any sort of video game that I didn't buy, because then like me personally, I would be a little upset because like somebody bought me this, somebody with their hard work, like they bought me it, so like I just try to be conscious of like others, because I feel like if I was to essentially disrespect or just harm any sort of equipment in some way, I feel like I would be ruining like somebody else's hard work to get me the things that I have.
Exactly. You know, and there's another aspect to this too, and the other area that we focus on for mental health is because of the toxicity that's part, unfortunately, of the gaming world. Now, is it part of necessarily the collegiate esports world or the high school esports world? No, but our players on a regular basis are in an environment that is extremely toxic when you have individuals saying things or making posts in discords. You know, those things have wear and tear on an individual. So, you know, we want to make sure that we protect our students and they have an understanding of how do they speak up, how do they stop those things, how do they handle it if they're the one being attacked. And people hide behind computer screens. It's not a secret. And in the video game world, people do that to get a rile out of people, unfortunately. And there's certain titles that have kind of, they are known to be extremely toxic. And we work to make sure that our students know how to prepare themselves, how to be bystanders in those things, how do they intervene, how do they intervene for themselves and others, so that we're putting them in a position to be successful, and those things aren't going into the rest of their lives. Because we don't want those things to boil over, especially when we have an individual that might be grinding a game 20 hours a week, making sure that they're going to be successful.
I understand and I agree completely, and I'm really happy to hear that. I want to shift gears a little bit to kind of back toward Augustana. One of the questions, because like how we were talking about the toxicity a little bit, when like students are, let's say you're playing against another school, and you mentioned Discord, like say with like games, we're in Valorant for example, can Augustana student like can we hear the other schools, or you just hear your teammates?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when we're in game comms, you only hear your teammates. The conference has the ability to come in and listen to us if they need to be. Actually, coaches are turned off during that time. In esports, it's different than traditional athletics, where a basketball coach can be coaching in game and telling players what to do. We don't get to do that. Once the game starts, we're hands off. We're sitting back and watching the game almost like a spectator, with some opportunities when there's timeouts or in between maps and stuff like that where we can talk to the team. But our game comms are private. They're not broadcast. They're not. Other teams don't hear them. We actually record our game comms to listen back to during VOD reviews, so that we can learn from our own game comms. But can game comms get heated? Most definitely. And we work to create an environment where we're being respectful during them, but there's definitely a time for anyone that's been involved with any athletics. You feel the hype, you feel the down, you feel those peaks and valleys. You feel the same thing in our communication.
I totally understand. Like me, like I played football in like high school and stuff like that, and just like me, like I wouldn't talk to the other team. Like that's just me and like my upbringing in football. I wouldn't speak to like referees, for example, unless they speak to me, asking me something direct. Like, but if a teammate is getting heated, another player, I would kind of say, because I'd imagine it's a little harder for esports when another teammate is heated at maybe themselves or another teammate. I'd imagine it's kind of hard to intervene with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The one time that teams really get to communicate is pre-game or in between games, and it's all via chat or actual text chat in lobbies. And for the most part, it's always really funny banter that goes back and forth. A lot of oddball jokes. They're a bunch of gamer kids having fun and getting to know each other. And those things are fun to have, and that's part of the relationship building as you start playing the same teams over and over again. And now, as we take a look at our Twitch chat, and those are things that we monitor. We have electronic monitor that kind of watches for bad things, but then our casting team to making sure that we're watching that, to making sure that we're being not mean or being disrespectful, being appropriate towards others. But just like traditional sports, fans are at a different level at times, and our Twitch still, the great thing about our Twitch chat, still gives a connection point from our fans back to our team. So we love to have that connection. We just make sure that we monitor those things.
I understand. The other thing I wanted to ask is, like, ultimately for either students who are currently at Augustana or maybe prospective students who have Augustana on their radar, if they want to be a part of the esports team here, how do they get to be a part of it? Is it like, would they show up here to meet with you? Is there something to fill out?
Yeah, and there's two separate. First with our current students here on campus, they can reach out to me. Easiest way is you get into our social media, Twitch and Instagram, at Augustana or at Augie Esports _IL. There, my contact information is right there. We have a link tree, contact information right there. Reach out. With our current students, really the typical request is we're looking for individuals that are Diamond Plus plus within the games that we offer. Part of that is maintaining roster size while looking for high caliber talent that can come in to our top ELO teams. With our recruiting with high school students, really they can follow us via our social media, but also through our recruiting form, which is on our website. It's on the athletics website. They can reach out to admissions and get in contact with us. So there's a number of ways that individual students that are in the high school can then find ways to reach out to us. The easiest way is to go to our website, augustana.edu/esports, and there's a big yellow button that says recruiting form. and you click it, very similar to traditional athletics, and that allows us to see, who they are, what games they play, what's their experience level. As we continue to build the program, we're going to be looking for, higher caliber talent. But part of our program is a developmental program, so we have, for most of our teams, we do have multiple rosters the goal is to work people into our top rosters. And so there's opportunities for growth there. For individuals that are lower ELO, the bronze, silver, gold, plat players, what we're looking for is they can reach out and we can give them some pointers. What can they be working on? There's tryouts that'll be offered for games at different points of the year based on our roster needs, and I think that's another way to get involved. And also always looking just for volunteers to come in and potentially work with our program, maybe working as a volunteering as a caster for a team. Might be a League of Legends player, and they're new to the game. They've only played a couple seasons. They're still working, but they're really passionate about the game. You can get them behind a mic and work with them, because it's a great way for them to learn. Might be someone that is really just wants to create social media posts for us. And we can get students involved in those ways too.
How big is the team currently?
So currently we have almost 50 on our varsity rosters. So if we take a look, we offer Valorant, Overwatch, League of Legends, Rocket League, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Madden, FIFA, and 2K. Our growth plan is to take us to about to average around 60 students within our roster, and that's for our facility here. That's what our build out was for, is to focus on about that many students.
Okay. And like earlier in our conversation, we were talking about like how esports offers talent-based scholarships. You seemed a little kind of unsure about what exactly goes into those scholarships, or maybe can you clear that up a little bit, like explain a little bit about that?
So our talent-based scholarships are only offered to new incoming students, whether it be a new first-year student or a new transfer student. Their trial process for those, similar to, let's say someone was trying out for a music scholarship or a theater scholarship, you try out for a scholarship with Esports. Our typical scholarships range between $1,000 and $3,000 if you're offered a roster spot from the tryout. When we take a look at the tryouts, it's dependent on what game, what title that students are trying out for. What we're looking at, we're looking at a lot of things, ranging from communication to macro knowledge of the game to mechanical gameplay. So we're looking at a number of different things, myself and my coaching staff, to make sure that we're bringing in students that are going to not only be good Vikings, but be individuals that are going to come in and be able to be successful on our teams.
I know this is kind of hard. There's going to be multiple. I'm going to guess there's going to be multiple things that you would answer with this question. But what would you say is one of the things that interests you most about esports at Augustana?
Yeah, I think when we take a look, and this is part of the opportunity that I was taking when I took this job, was the senior leadership team giving me the opportunity to create what I thought was going to be successful in creating a crown jewel, not only in the Quad Cities, but of a program throughout the Midwest and the country. We have a very passionate student group that was already here, and I think that they laid the groundwork. The Esports Club started in 2017 and provided the opportunity for what we now have here, and the transition from a club sport to a varsity athletic program. And I think that those students showed me the passion that wanted me to have this job. And then once I got here, we have traditional sport athletes. We have several elected board members from different organizations. We now have 8 different nations represented on our roster. We have all of these student leaders from all over the world in one room. That's special to Augustana. And I think that's really cool to see how that interaction works. You take a look at our Valorant team, and we have students from Mongolia, Vietnam, Nepal, and watching them all come together, seeing that gameplay, because each of those regions plays a little bit different, and how that comes together and then goes out, and how we play against North American colleges and universities. And so, I think it's, the students that we have in it, I think that's really pushing how we recruit, and looking at individuals that are going to fit the model that, our current students were already doing. And that's what I'm excited about. That's what my passion is, and why, I think we have an opportunity to do great things.
It sounds really amazing thing, and I'm really happy for you and everyone else on the esports team. When's the next competition? When's the next time people can watch a tournament?
Yeah, so the best way to get our competition schedule and what's going on is following us on Instagram or Twitter. Again, it's Augie Esports _IL. Our typical format is Mondays Valorant, Wednesdays League of Legends, Thursdays Overwatch, with Super Smash Ultimate and our sports titles put in within those times. All of our Twitch streams are all announced on our social media. We stream about 15 to 20 hours of gameplay a week.
That's about all I have for you today, but is there any other things that you'd like to say?
Just check us out. Come look through the fishbowl and walk by and see the great things we're doing. I think that we're going to continue to grow and become more visible on campus, and I'm excited for those opportunities. Once we get settled in with the varsity team, we'll look at taking some opportunities to open up our facility for the rest of the general student population to get in to do some tournament play and check things out. But we're still breaking it in. We gotta get through the first 50 miles before we get too crazy.
And I gotta be able to crawl first before you can start walking then running. I would like to thank Coach Loomis for taking the time for talking with me about esports. I really enjoyed myself in the conversation that the two of us had. Be sure to tune in next time to catch another Augustana Observer podcast episode. I'm Jaren Smith. I hope you all have an amazing week.